Squabby Nation. United we stand. Divided we will fall. Let's go. I come to show what Kaiso can do. What me Kaiso can do. I don't think about crime, it's not my concern. But when bullets flying, everyone gets burned. As if chutney singer don't feel the pain too. So I come with this guy so chutney for you. Struggles in life, we all face the same thing. I make this statement as undisputed chutney king. Homelessness, murders and vagrancy. Please don't expect me to only sing about rum and roti. So tell them that this year Ricky singing special chutney commentary. Tell them this year Ricky Jai chutney commentary and try. Crime is hurting me like it's hurting you. This guy so chutney is long overdue. Don't box me in one corner at the ring and feel it's only chutney that I could sing. I want to address suffering and pain, poverty and gangs give us a bad name. I hope all you see this is my fight too. I come to show what chutney Kaiso can do. Tell them that this year Ricky singing Kaiso chutney commentary. Tell them Dr. Ricky Jai chutney commentary and try. Rabada ba 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 dee 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 dee. Listen, look, no hospital beds for your sickly child. Does it matter if you like Kaiso or chutney style? Medicine shortage, doctors in distress. Does chutney or Kaiso people feel it less? The nation crying, the crime rate on overflow. Blood and soul breaking, records up in Tobago. Corruption spread like a disease in we country. But they still want me to sing about rum and honey. Tell them that this year Ricky singing Kaiso chutney commentary. Tell them this year Ricky Jai chutney commentary and try. Healthcare in crisis, the people can't cope. I sing it to bring a message of hope. This pain is real, we all feel the blow. This no mama guy or no papi show. When leaders fail, who will make a stand? We've all had enough, it's time to demand. Don't tell me to do a next chutney dance when murderers not giving we a chance. Tell them that this year Ricky singing Kaiso chutney commentary. Tell them Dr. Ricky Jai chutney commentary and try. Rapada ba 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 dee 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 dee. When it's class divide, they build in between we songs. Calypso for serious, chutney for rum. While national issues attacking we day and night. You know they want me to keep the rum in the damn spotlight. As a chutney artist, I can contribute to sing for this country, national pride and for the truth. Isn't that what all artists are really supposed to do? Yes, we bring the fun, but we could sing for consciousness too. So tell them that this year Ricky singing Kaiso chutney commentary. Tell them this year Ricky Jai chutney commentary and try. Class dividing music making no sense. Kaiso and chutney share one defense. Let's deal with issues, big or small. In this Kaiso chutney, I'm telling all. When the system breaks, we can sing for truth. We culture have power, it's not destitute. Don't try to box me in one corner of the ring. This chutney king could sing anything. Tell them that this year Ricky
Singing Kaiso Chutney commentary.
Tell them Dr. Ricky Jai
Chutney commentary.
Trinidad
Try.
You know what? I come to show what Kaiso can do. What me chutney Kaiso can do. I come to show what Kaiso can do. What me chutney Kaiso can do.
I come to show what Kaiso.
Why can't I use my voice for the people's fight?
To show what Kaiso.
Every day we wake to the same plan.
To show what Kaiso.
I do only sing songs about rum and fete. Tonight I come to sing a song Trinidad will never forget. The only way that this country can come one again. Sando, all you come and meet, Port of Spain, Africans, East Indians. Tonight we have to unite. We have to come together. Together to stop this fight, I say. Tell them that this year Ricky
Singing Kaiso Chutney commentary.
Tell them Dr. Ricky Jai
Chutney commentary and try.
Tell them that this year Ricky
Singing Kaiso Chutney commentary.
Tell them
Chutney commentary and try.
class dividing music making no sense. Kaiso and Chutney share one defense. Let's deal with issues, big or small. In this Kaiso Chutney, I'm telling all. When the system breaks, we can sing for truth. We culture have power, it's not destitute. Don't try to box me in one corner of the ring. This Chutney king could sing anything. Tell them that this year Ricky
Singing Kaiso Chutney commentary.
Tell them Dr. Ricky Jai
Chutney commentary.
Trinidad
Try.
You know what? I come to show what Kaiso can do. What me chutney Kaiso can do. I come to show what Kaiso can do. What me chutney Kaiso can do.
I come to show what Kaiso.
Why can't I use my voice for the people's fight?
To show what Kaiso.
Every day we wake to the same plan.
To show what Kaiso.
I do only sing songs about rum and fete.
I come to show.
Tonight I come to sing a song Trinidad will never forget.
I come to show what.
The only way that this country can come one again.
Show what Kaiso.
Sando, all you come and meet, Port of Spain,
Show what.
Africans, East Indians. Tonight we have to unite.
Show what.
We have to come together to stop this fight, I say.
Show what.
Tell them that this year Ricky
Singing Kaiso Chutney commentary.
Tell them Dr. Ricky Jai
Chutney commentary and try.
Tell them that this year Ricky
Singing Kaiso Chutney commentary.
Tell them Dr. Ricky Jai
Chutney commentary and try.
Tell them that this year Ricky
Singing Kaiso Chutney commentary.
Tell them Dr. Ricky Jai.
Chutney commentary.
Thank you very much, Prince Mark Savannah. Love you.
Singing Kaiso Chutney commentary.
We are a paradise,
Commentary and try.
as said by
Singing Kaiso Chutney
Archbishop
commentary.
Desmond Tutu. Thank you very much. Love you.
Commentary and try. Singing Kaiso Chutney commentary.
Kaiso Chutney. Dr. Ricky Jai there. This year's Calypso Monarch competition in Trinidad, Tobago. Dr. Ricky Jai, Kaiso Chutney. Not strange, you know. Those of you who know the culture, know the music, would know that what we now call soca, the soul of Calypso, that's what soca is, the soul of Calypso, was actually pioneered, invented by Lord Shorty I. Ras Shorty I became known later on in life, Lord Shorty, who fused kaiso, calypso, with the Indian beat and created this new iteration of the music that we now call soca. So soca is really a fusion of traditional calypso and Indian musical beat to create this thing that we call soca. Again, soca is the soul of calypso, and it was out of that invention by Ras Shorty I that we have now the variation that is called chutney soca. But now Ricky Jai is saying chutney kaiso. Chutney kaiso. It is fusing the chutney with the calypso. Kaiso, of course, is the term that was brought across the Middle Passage by the Africans who were forcibly uprooted from Africa. And they brought with them the music, the call and response music, the kaiso. That's where the origins of kaiso is, in West Africa. The call and response music, the storytelling music. They sit around the fire and chant music. And of course, it became a weapon on the slave plantation. That is why calypso or kaiso is the mother music of the English-speaking Caribbean. All our other musical forms arose from calypso. Reggae, which is a relatively new music, emerging in the early 1950s in Jamaica. And reggae itself is a fusion of calypso, the folk music of Jamaica, and rhythm and blues from the United States. And the fusion of those three musical forms is what we call reggae today. Of course, the first iteration of reggae was the ska, and ska then evolved into rocksteady, then rocksteady into reggae, and reggae into dancehall. And we use reggae as the overarching term. And do you know that that term reggae, it came from Toots Hibbert, leader of Toots and the Maytals, who uttered the words reggae, 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 reggae. And that's where the term came from. Of course, we now have raga soca, which is reggae and soca, or dancehall, reggae and soca. So the music is evolving. We now have high life music from West Africa, merging with reggae, creating a new African version, you know. We came from Africa with kaiso, and we give back to Africa reggae and calypso. Really the music moving. Good evening to all of you. Just a little tidbit there of the music. And of course, those of us in the United States of America who are familiar with hip-hop. Hip-hop itself emerged from reggae. You know, hip-hop coming from the rappers. The early rappers were West Indians who first started to, rap, whoa, you know, rapping in the basements in Brooklyn and the Bronx. They were West Indians. And that's where hip hop emerged from hip hop music, rap music it was called for, because hip hop is really an overarching term. Hip hop is the cultural term. You have hip hop music, but there's also graffiti, there's also dress style. So hip hop is really the culture. The rap is the music. And it was first started by West Indians who brought with them reggae to Brooklyn and the Bronx. And they began in the basements. So we have the music going round and flowing, and we now have reggaeton. That is a fusion of reggae and Hispanic music. the music is a lifeline. When everything else goes wrong, we have the culture, the popular culture, and popular music. Is there? Good evening, Ricky Jai. Chutney Kaiso, not Chutney Soka. Chutney Kaiso, yes. Carla is asking, what about funk? Funk itself was influenced by black music. In fact, what we now know as popular music in the United States, really black music. I mean, the mother musics of the United States are African-American music, the blues and jazz. The modern musics, the modern music of Black America, but the modern music of America itself. And all other American musical forms flow from the blues and the jazz. And as you know, jazz is jazz is something else. There are no rules, you know. Jazz is no rules. It's just like reggae. Reggae first started as sampling. You know, you sample, take a little piece of this, a little piece of that. Same thing with jazz, you know. There are no rules in the sense that there are no European rules. But the music has created its own rules. You know, they say reggae is an accident. Somebody miss a note, you know. Because reggae is a kind of offbeat music, right? Offbeat music, they call it. It's same thing with jazz. They're no standard. I mean, you don't go to music school to learn jazz and reggae and calypso and the blues and all these music. That's why we call them popular music, as opposed to the so-called classical music, the music that arise from the popular masses as they express themselves. If you're in the slave plantation, I mean, life is hard. And that's where the blues come from. The blues. Good evening to all of you and welcome to Politics 101 tonight. Just chatting a little bit here about the music. And, you know, we in Guyana, perhaps if we had a recording studio, I know people like Vivian Lee and so forth, they tried. But you know, Tom Charles had introduced a song called The Boom. The Boom. Those of you who know about Tom Charles and the Syncopators, you know, The Boom. It didn't catch on beyond the 60s and the 70s. In the same way that Barbados had created its own music, the Spooge. Remember the Merry Men? And Sparrow really made his name, the mighty Sparrow really made his name starting in Guyana. He used to come to Guyana and be there in Tiger Bay. And in fact, I'll tell you all a little piece of story. Sparrow won the crown in 1956 with Gene and Dinah. And Gene and Dinah was really a jingle he had made for one of the businesses in Trinidad at the time, Salvatore. And then he turned it into this immortal calypso, Gene and Dinah, which is really a commentary on the impact of American occupation, because there was the American base in Trinidad, just we had our American base, Atkinson Airfield. And, the American soldiers were men, encouraged prostitution, and that's where, the rum and Coca-Cola, which the Andrews sisters in America made famous and made big money off of it. So there were a lot of calypsos that was sung about the Yankees and, the base. So Sparrow won in 1956 as a 21-year-old with Gene and Dinah. And in 1957, he refused to compete because I think he got $45. They give him $45 for winning the crown in 1956. And the Calypso Queen in those days were red-skinned, half-white people. The Calypso Queen got more money than the Calypsonians. And so in 1957, Sparrow decided he's not competing. And Vivian Lee, a Guyanese promoter, was in Trinidad. And he organized at one of the cinemas in Port of Spain a kind of rival concert or rival competition. Because in those days, the competition wasn't run by the Trinidad Calypso Association. There wasn't anything like that at that time. It was run by the Guardian Company. A lot of you will know the Guardian newspapers. Well, there's a big company like Booker's. And Vivian Lee, a Guyanese promoter, organized this rival concert or rival competition at one of the cinemas in Port of Spain, and Sparrow performed there. In fact, there's a story that some of the Calypsonians performed at the official Calypso Monarch and then went across to Vivian Lee's show, and vice versa. But Sparrow's relationship with Guyana started there. Of course, in those days, we had King Fighter, who was big in Trinidad. I mean, he was in the late 1950s. King Fighter was a real catch in the tents in Trinidad. One of these days, we'll have to play some King Fighter. Those of you my generation and older will know of Suki, King Fighter's famous calypso. But Sparrow would come down and, Sparrow sang some calypsos about Guyana, BG planting. He said, he heard that Eric Williams want to ban importation of planting from British Guyana. And he's warning Eric Williams trouble in Trinidad because the women are protesting the banning of BG planting, the Calypsonian, masking. And then, of course, he sang, I don't care if, during the disturbances in the 60s, I don't care if, the Bondong Bookers, I don't care if they Bondong this place. But so long as they own Bondong fraternity in Tiger Bay, where all them Wabbins that hang out, because Sparrow used to hang out in Tiger Bay when he come. So he knew Tiger Bay and Georgetown fairly well. and sang there. So there's a connection, and they say that a lot of his great calypsos were written because in those days, when Carnival was finished in Trinidad, the calypsonians would come to Guyana. They would come to Guyana. Vivian Lee was one of the persons that these what you call calypso caravans. And so the calypsonians would come to Guyana when they were finished in Trinidad. Nowadays, of course, when they finish in Trinidad, they're gone to Brooklyn and other places and so on. But Guyana was the place to come. And so a lot of the calypsonians would come through. In fact, a lot of the Black American soul singers, Solomon Burke and all those guys came to Guyana in the 1960s. It was really the place to come. Vivian Lee later on would he produced one of the early movies in Guyana, If Wishes Were Horses, in the 1970s. I think the first actual Guyanese film was called Agro Seaman, and that was made in 1972. And yours truly, as a little schoolboy, had a little role in that movie. Agro Seaman was about this man who was working with one of the companies and sell furniture and other things, and then he would come back and pretend that he was working for the companies and repossess the furniture and so on. So they call him the Seaman. And I had a role. I was a little schoolboy towing my girlfriend from school. I always wonder where that young lady is. Her last name was Murray. I ran into a brother of hers years and years later. But I was towing her the bicycle from school. And as we were passing Metropole Cinema, the seaman in the bus or the truck, he just sees a fridge or something from people, and he knocked me down. And the police came, and of course the police discovered that he had loot in the thing. That was 1972. 1972. I earned $49.99 base. And for every day you went to rehearsal and, was $9.99. I think I took home $89 or $99 and gave my auntie. My Jesus Christ, that was 1972. That's plenty money. My auntie grabbed the money quick. Give me back a small piece and so on. Thanks to Mr. Paul King, who was our English teacher. And I think he had known somebody, because it was made by Americans. Some Americans had come down and made that movie. And he took a number of us to try out for the movies. And I think about 3 or 4 other people from Buxton Secondary School, they were in a crowd scene, but I was in that scene. I remember going and reading the script, that they call cold reading. And after the first reading, the American man said, "Cut! I think we've got our man here." And I remember that to this day. Well, of course, we had done a lot of drama. 1972, I might have been in third form. I think third form, Colin Burke would remember well. But we had done a lot of reading and drama. Henry Rodney, Sir McGarrell, Colin Burke, Orrin Gordon, Deacon Bogle, Lawrence Abrams, I think his name was, and Fenella Abrams and Miss Seaford. They had us translating short stories and turning them into skits. So we were trained, even though we were just in Form 2 or Form 3. So when we went to try out, you know, we did fairly well. Those were the golden days of schooling. When you left high school, you left as an all-rounder. Sports, drama, education, you name it. You did everything. And one of the things, if we were to win the coming elections and get back in power, we'll urge our Minister of Education, and I know you all don't like me say if, when we win, to really return our education system to those days. Good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101. It's Thursday evening. We took the night off last night because I had another appearance later on in the evening, and I was rushing home from class and was a little bit exhausted, and so we took the night off. Our apologies. Wherever you're joining us from, whether it's in the United States of America, where things are happening, of course, today the Secretary of State visited Guyana, the third Secretary of State to visit Guyana in recent times, Mike Pompeo, Joe Biden's Secretary of State came last year, the year before, and now Mark Rubio. It points to the strategic position of Guyana in hemispheric and world politics. 3, when you talk about Secretary of State, my mind goes back to the 1970s when Henry Kissinger went to Jamaica to tell Manley to stop hanging out with Castro, and to also tell Manley to remove the 7% levy on bauxite. And the famous story, he was staying at a hotel in Ocho Rios and wanted Manley to go and meet him at the hotel. And Manley's wife and other supporters said, "You're not going there. He comes to your country. He comes to Jamaica House to see you. You're not going to no hotel to meet him." And when I think about secretaries of state, I mean, that was, I don't think a American Secretary of State came to the region after then. I may be wrong. But here in Guyana, the third visit from a Secretary of State. Third visit. Well, I saw some headlines, and I haven't digested them yet, so I don't want to talk very much about what happened today. I saw one of the headlines saying that the Americans have turned over the indictments or the information against the Mohammeds to the American government, to the Guyanese government. Oh well. Tonight we want to talk, we want to talk a little bit about choice and ownership. You know that we have argued that we have to make a distinction between political campaigning and pickpocket politics. I call it pickpocket politics. I'll explain. Political campaigning means that each party has a right to go into any community and campaign. Have a right. In the same way that each individual has a right to belong to any party. So those things are not contested. Pickpocket politics is when you use illegal ways, scampish ways to go into communities and to buy people's votes using state resources, to buy votes either to help you to win or to suppress the votes of your opponent. And that's illegal. That's illegal. Vote buying is illegal because it undermines the democratic process. If someone buys your vote, then you are not voting based on your conscience and how you perceive the competitors. Someone is coming and engaging in a transaction. And that is not democracy. And that is why I'm saying it's illegal. It's undemocratic. And we have alerted Guyana to this menace, because it's a menace. We have alerted Guyana to this pickpocket politics. That's what it is. Our friends across the aisle have said that we are now a nation of minorities. And so if we want to win, we have to reach across the aisle. Fair enough, that sounds well. But in a place like Guyana, getting votes across the aisle is difficult. It's very difficult because we are a divided nation. Our political culture, our electoral choices are done within the context of our ethnic division. Some people call it vote race. It may be that, but I think it's more than just voting race. So it is very difficult in places like Guyana to get votes across the aisle. In fact, it is even difficult to get votes in the middle every now and again. And by the middle, I mean a third party may come along, as the United Force came along in the late 50s, early 60s. And the United Force got the majority of electoral support from Amerindians, the small Portuguese population, and it got some of the Indian bourgeoisie and some African middle class votes. So there was United Force in the middle, and it was able to get some, not crossover, you go to the middle. The WPA came along. The WPA didn't come along in the context of elections, but the WPA was able to attract support from Africans and Indians who came to the middle, then cross over. They saw the WPA as being there in the middle. And then the AFC came along. And again, first Africans in 2006 came to the middle. Some voted for the AFC. And then later on, some Indians came to the middle. So people moving to the middle happens sometimes, but people crossing over is very difficult in a polity like Guyana. So when people are telling you about crossover vote, they're fooling you. And they're asking you to do some things that will have consequences for your group. Because they're asking you to dilute, decrease the power of your group. Because in an ethnically divided society, power comes from that ethnic vote, those ethnic voting blocks. So when somebody's telling you, cross from the Indian side and come over here, or cross from the Africans and go over there. They're in fact asking you to take a decision to weaken the political power of your group. That's what they're asking you to do. And that is why people don't naturally do it. They don't do it, you know, naturally. Africans would go to the middle, you know. Some went to the WPA. When election time came around, they went back to the PNC. Some Africans went to the middle. In 2006, AFC was able to get about 5 seats from Africans. But once the PNC got together with the WPA and created a bloc, those Africans went back to what we eventually know as the APNU. So in 2011, some Indians came to the AFC, Nagamutu Indians, Ramjatan Indians. But then the AFC joined with the quote-unquote devils, and the PNC was able to go to those Indians and say, you're empowering those black people. And the Indians went back over. So crossover votes are problematic in ethnically divided societies. So the PPP and its ideologues have come up with this new idea that what we're going to do, we're going to use the enormous state assets, and we are going to use it to buy votes from across the aisle. Having spent 20 odd years disempowering the African community economically, they are now vulnerable. They are more likely, so the thinking goes, to sell their votes. And we in the Working People's Alliance spotted that, and we feel that it is immoral. It's illegal, it's politically immoral, it's illegal, it flies in the face of democracy, and we decided to raise the alert about it. And we decided to bring it out into the open. That's where the term slave catcher is not a new term. I just happen to use it in this new context, and it has now become part of our discourse. That's where the term slave catchers come from. Because the PPP is not sending Indians into the African communities to buy these votes. They recruit individuals, or individuals volunteer their services to do that. Some do it knowingly, some do it unknowingly. But in the end, it has the same effect. And so, you know, we have used terms such as slave catching, well, house slaves and so on and so forth. House slaves is another term that I use regularly, but I understand those who use it, how they're using it. I prefer the term slave catcher. And we have used that term, and then laterally, we have borrowed from the Trinidadians the term Lake Bottom Africans, and we have used it in order to demonstrate to our people what is afoot. Of course, the other side makes the argument that David Hines and the WPA feel that they own black people, and that we don't own black people. Black people have choices. So I want to address that concept of feeling that we own black people. The people who are the victims of people owning people are us, Africans. And whatever we do is always a reaction to that. a reaction to that fact of history. So for people to accuse us of owning people is a misnomer. What we do is that we have developed a collective response to those who would hunt us down and catch us and turn us over to the slave traders. That's what. We don't own people. But we have developed what black political scientists call a linked fate, F-A-T-E. And we have developed a response, a collective response to slave traders and slave catchers. A father and a mother, parents, don't own their children, but they have a duty to protect their children from kidnappers. Let me repeat that for those who are trying to talk nonsense. A mother and a father, a parent, a guardian, they don't own their children as in enslavement. But they have a duty to protect their children, to protect their family from those who would like to do them harm. And those like myself, who have benefited directly and indirectly from the collective sacrifices of our people, as scholars, as activists, as artists, we have a duty to protect our people from being kidnapped and snatched and put into modern day slavery. That's what I'm talking about, and that's what it's about. Africans have never owned people. Africans were owned by people. East Indians never owned people, but they were partly owned in the system of indentureship. Amerindians were partly owned, and so as groups, we develop a mechanism of defense and protection. That's not ownership. What our people own are their dignity, their votes, and if you are coming to steal their dignity and their votes, vote is citizenship. Vote is power. And if you're coming to use your 10 pieces of silver to deprive and to buy our people dignity, then we are going to protect our people from that onslaught. That's what I am talking about. Mr. Sor on the other side were telling me about we think we own people. What nonsense are you talking about? Dick Gregory saying, what kind of fool is you? You see, these people believe that because they read a few books and learn a few theories, they come and they throw them at us. But you all have created and made sacrifice to people like myself to think these things through and to answer them. We don't own black people. We have no need to own black people. We are fighting against the scars of 400 years of ownership. What nonsense are you talking about? People feel they own black people. What are you talking about? because you think you are talking to uncivilized people, unschooled people. But we have news for you. The parents, the guardians, the elders, whether they be Indian or African or Amerindian, Chinese or Portuguese, they have a responsibility to protect their family. And we Africans are a family, just as Indians are a family, just as Amerindians are a family. All that we are doing is protecting and defending our families. Let me get to this term choice. A European, Eurocentric concoction, this whole notion of choice. Our people have a choice. So, my foreparents, your foreparents, choose to go into slavery. Choice. No. They have choice. Choice. So they have a choice whether to go into slavery or not. What nonsense are you talking about? You're using a European construct in a situation with people who were forced into subjection. Africans into slavery and colonialism, Indians into indentureship and colonialism, Amerindians into colonialism and indigenous genocide. What choice are you talking about? Amerindians chose genocide. Africans chose slavery. East Indians chose indentureship. That's what you're telling me about choice. If a man is coming to me to blow my head off, you are telling me I have a choice to let him blow my head off? Educated fools. That's what they are. They read books, hear some of these terms, and use them in context where they have no business. What choice? You come to buy my vote, which is my weapon against oppression, which is my weapon to advance my dignity, and you are coming to buy it, and you are telling it's my choice to sell my birthright, to sell my dignity, and you are calling it choice? Go to hell. There's no choice in this. No choice. But it's the disdain for the African. They dare not go to Indians and tell Indians, you have a choice. How do I know that? Muhammad has decided belatedly to go into Indian communities. And you see what they're doing to Muhammad? They're treating him as a slave catcher. That he's coming to catch their slaves, to catch them as if they're slaves. And what are they doing? They are physically assaulting Muhammad people. We're not doing that in the black community. We are using words, and we are using arguments and language and political arguments in the Indian community, where they are calling Muhammad and Nima Karan. They're doing more than that. When he turns up there, they have placards. They're cussing out. And they move from cussing out to fighting up. When David Hines says, don't come into the black community and catch our people to turn them into oppression, they said David Hines behaving as though he owned black people. Well, the PPP itself is telling Muhammad, you are persona non grata. You Nimakaran. You Muslim. By you coming in here to catch our people and to sell them into indentureship. And we are not allowing you to do it. That is what is playing out right now in the Indian community. David Hines is right. The WPA was right. Our leaders are right. Some of them not saying it as I am saying it, or the WPA, or as the WPA is saying it. But they know what we're talking about. They're a little bit scared to say, call it what it is. But that's all right, I understand that. We are saying, you are coming, you are using the money of the state and coming to take advantage of the poverty of our people to buy their votes. Now, Mohammed, who you give plenty of state money, is now using part of that state money to buy Indian votes. And what you do? You want to kill them. And you want to kill them. What goes wrong must come back wrong, so. What goes wrong must come back wrong, so. Are you giving money? The money what Muhammad make, he ain't get it from Allah. Is we money all you take and give him. And now he taking part of that money to go in your stronghold and buy votes. And why you want to do them? Kill them. I would just not kill nobody over this side. They're not fighting up. We use our words. We talk to our young people. We give them the language. Hey, Bakra Watchman, come out here. Long time when you start a African thing, emancipation, we always start with a child. Hey, Bakra Watchman, come out here. Yo, Bakra Watchman, come out here. Hey, Bakra Watchman, come out here. We have always known they were slave catchers. And we always ask the ancestors to chase them out. But when we are doing it, all you're telling me we own and black people have choice. Well, Indian people ain't got choice. Indian people ain't got choice to go with Muhammad or not to go. Why you all trying to kill Muhammad? Why you all trying to assassinate Muhammad? Why you all going out with placard? Why you all fighting up woman and man? If the people have choice, but then let them choose Muhammad. But no, Muhammad borrowed from you all. He take the money that you give you, same state money, and he's now going to buy votes from your constituency. But good for the goose, apparently in Ghana, not good for the gander. You see, thank God, thank the ancestors. Coming out of the civil rights movement, one of the big gains was that there are now new disciplines. Black studies, Pan-African studies, Africana studies. And people like myself have been beneficiaries in the sense that we have gone to university and we have studied these concepts. We have studied our people's experiences. And so we can anticipate and we can frame responses. The PPP has made vote buying, slave catching, indentureship catching, they've made it policy. And insofar as they were attempting to do it to black people, all well and good. But now Mohammed is going into the Indian community and using his money that you all give to him to do what you all are attempting to do in the black community. Buy Indian votes. You all see the hypocrisy? I raised it on a program last night. Shoop, shoop. Then I said nothing. Reach across the aisle. Well, yes. Allow Indian people to have a choice. But you all denying them the choice. You all own them, no? Sisters and brothers, we got to do a lot more of what I am doing here. I wish I had a magic wand in which I can go to all my brother and sister politicians and tap them on their head and say, talk like I am talking, not because I am right, but because it's the kind of talk we have to talk now. If more of us are educating our people as I am doing here and working it out for them, it's okay for PPP to come and use state resources to take advantage of poverty in the black community. But it's not okay when Mohammed and other Indians go into the Indian community and seek to do the same. If more of us tell young black people, our young black people will say, all right, we got it. I hear Freddie Kissoon last night. This is the man that said, if David Hines go at Border Market, he won't get 2 people. Here we said last night. The black lumpen proletariat. The black lumpen proletariat are going to vote for David Hines and Takumo Ogunse because they are likely to like the Brocco politics, as he put it, of David Hines and Ogunse, and they're going to vote for you. Because his friend, Leonard Craig, was saying that, well, poor black people are going to go and vote for the ASC. And Freddie's saying, no, he called it the lumpen proletariat. What he means is poor black people. Poor black people are likely to go and vote for David Hines and Takumo Ogunse because of their Brocco politics. He knows politics is not Brocco politics. Our politics is radical politics. They admit. You see, that is why they don't want us together. Because the black community is not a monolith, just like the Indian community, but the Indian community acted more as a monolith than we do. And the reason they do that is the Indian community, they have the same socialization when they go to church, when they go to school, when they go to a political meeting, when they go to wedding house, they have the same socialization. For Africans, when we go to school, we get one socialization. We go to church, we get another socialization. We go to the wedding house, we get another socialization. None of which is an African socialization. We only get an African socialization when around emancipation, we get an African socialization. So it means that we are less cohesive in our cultural reflexes than our Indian brothers and sisters are. And so therefore people seek to take advantage of us. What they don't know is that we as a people, although we don't have a cohesive cultural reflexes, we don't have a cohesive socialization. When we are faced with oppression, that socialization kicks in. Bob Marley puts it very well. He said, every time I hear the crack of a whip, my blood runs cold. Given that 400 experience of slavery, once it sinks into black people that this is slavery coming, we just become cohesive. That is what they miss. While we are not primarily a kind of black cohesive response, that's not usually our first response. Our first response is usually, well, let me wait and see, I don't know. But once you go far, whether it's a black government or a white government or an Indian government, once you go far, it kicks in. I remember when I was in Washington, D.C. on a radio program. It was a Saturday afternoon when it was announced that the PPP had chosen Janet Jagan as their presidential candidate. My heart sank. I was on a show called Caribbeana by Vaughn Martin. And I blurted out bad business. Because I knew, given my training and my studies, that while Indian people will not respond to a white leader in Guyana in a certain way, I knew that black people were going to respond to Mrs. Jagan's whiteness. Mrs. Jagan made a tremendous contribution to Guyana. And you talk to black people, they will accept that. They will acknowledge that. But when you are going to make her the numero uno, she's white, she's not Guyanese, that whiteness, that thing will kick in black. And I knew it. And so I wasn't surprised at the black response to Mrs. Jagan. I'm not saying I agree with it. I agreed with what was done on the road and the beating up of Dolly, but I knew it was going to happen. And Sonia Gandhi, the white wife of one of the Gandhi boys, she refused to run for the Prime Minister of India because she knew that it was going to have a kind of anti-colonial response. And she didn't. And I understand that Mrs. Jagan understood that and didn't want to do it. But because them Indian boys couldn't agree among themselves who could be the leader, they pushed the lady up front. And she reluctantly did it because she knew, as I knew, and that a lot of black scholars knew, that that's a no-no. I tell that story to say that although the initial response of black people, and to some extent brown people, is not always closing of ranks, but there's certain things, once you put it in front of them, it click in their head. Every time I hear the crack of a whip, my blood runs cold. So they calculate, the PPP, that given the fractious nature of the initial race response of black people, they feel that they could come into the community and take advantage of that. What they didn't figure is that the more oppressive you become, the more black people and the brown people, their own people, the race thing is going to click. For Indian people, their response to the PPP is a caste response. Them Chatri at the top is a race response because caste is like race. And their response to Muhammad a Muslim is really a response to Hindu authoritarianism in the Indian Guyanese community. The fools didn't make allowance for that. In many regards, the Indian Christian, the Indian Muslim, the Indian Hindu, they are all socialized within a Hindu framework. And they tend to be initially, unlike Africans, initially they tend to have more of a cohesive Indian response. But once you push them against a wall, that Indian response breaks up, or will not break up. That Indian response begins to unravel. It becomes a Hindu response, a caste response, a Muslim response, an Indian class response, and the fools have not made allowance to that. What is puzzling them is how an Indian Muslim is getting the response he's getting from Indian Hindus. That's what is puzzling them. The poor Hindu is seeing the PPP as the high caste Hindus, and they're rebelling against them and throwing their arms around an Indian Muslim man. Sisters and brothers, we are, yes, brother, that's what we always do, we teach. Thank you very much, Brother Asim. Well, comrades, look, sometimes you all tell us we talk too much, and it is true. It is not that we talk too much. Sometimes we talk with little action. That's the problem. It's not the talk. I know you all don't mind we talking once we talk in sense, right? What you all are saying is a lot of times we talk without action. You see, the thing about politicians is that they're superficial. And that is why I don't like to call myself a politician or a political activist. Politicians tend to be superficial. All we are concerned with is the vote and winning election. And that is largely true. You have to win votes, you have to win elections. But sometimes in the process of that superficiality, we get blindsided when the more complex social and racial and ethnic relations face us. We don't know what to do. What is happening in the Indian community is very interesting. First of all, Muhammad is doing what the PPP is trying to do to Africans. He's doing it to Indians. He's taking his enormous pocket and going in there and buying votes and buying loyalty. That's the first thing. The second thing is he is putting his finger on that electoral alliance that the PPP has put together. Based on superficiality. Indian people, man, don't worry, man. Oh God, we ain't giving you all as much as we're supposed to give you all. But at least we give you all a little bit more. And you get 2-lane road, then black man get 1 lane. And you get asphalt road, then black man get concrete road. And you get $250,000, then black man get $40,000. You see? That's what they're telling Indians. But when Wayne Muhammad go in, and Muhammad build house for them, he never build 40 house, 100 house, he built 2 house. The cat among the pigeons. And they are going to throw the kitchen sink at Muhammad. You see, they threw the kitchen sink at Nagamutu and Ramjatan. Nagamutu and Ramjatan didn't got deep pockets like Muhammad. That's the difference between Ramjatan and they wanted to slaughter Ramjatan and Nagamutu. This buyer now is a different kettle of fish. Get big money. So, I used to see how them a fight up. Big placard, woman. They always give you the impression only black women just go on bad. Only black women just cuss up and carry on. You all see Indian women fighting up and cussing up. I don't see it as fighting and cussing. It's a mode of expression. But when black women doing it, they fight up and cuss up. Indian women are doing it now. Indian women, supporters of the PPP, want them beat up a black boy. Little Kenya or wherever they're on the quarantine. Beat up a black boy. The police lock up the boy because they tell the boy beat she. When they see the video, and she beat up the boy, they let the boy loose the boy. But they're always saying, Ravi Dev said that black people are socialized to be politically violent. Where the political violence coming from? The Indian community. That's where it comes from. You aren't seeing black people. We aren't beating up the slave catchers. This election is bringing out some brutal truths about our country. And I have a duty. And I think we all, as political leaders and cultural leaders, have a duty to preserve our community. Yes, brother. Dr. Hines acknowledges that Guyanese of all races are hungry for proper leadership. It's the same old politics since independence. That's what's explained why a modestly qualified man can trigger such an emotional fellowship. You're right. You're right, Mr. Prasad or Imam Prasad. You're right. You're right. The PPP has been able successfully, to some extent, to frighten Indians by saying, look at those black people. They're going to rape your children. They're going to rape your women. They're going to beat you up. They're going to come in and rob you. And they've been able to mobilize an Indian response to them. But now an Indian man Paisa. He uses his paisa to rip open the fallacy of the PPP's superficial but effective ideology. We have never, most of us on our side, we don't appeal to what is the worst in black people. Certainly I don't. Certainly we in the Working People's Alliance don't. And most of us don't. I always say that I am for black dignity, not black indignity. But the PPP has been able to appeal to the worst in Indian people. And so when, and this is not new, the Ravi Dev who running behind them now, When he, the Farmy Party, roar and go into the community, they go in front of yours, the PPP, and lick them down inside there, in front of yours. Now you run behind them because they're doing what he always envisaged, which is that they are going for Indian domination in Guyana. But they've always treated dissenting Indians in that way. From Balram Singh Rai to Moses Bhagwan, come right through. They've always treated Indian leaders like that. But this boy is different because the boy get money. In an era where people are impoverished and they respond to money in a certain way. The chickens are coming home to roost. Now, we finally today hear that the Americans pass on the information. They got the information a long time. Not today. The information about the Mohammeds, they get it long time. But they were keeping it in their back pocket to wait to see what Mohammed would do. And now they see, look what Mohammed can do. Look what Mohammed can do. They're going for the jugular. But whether they stop Mohammed, whether they Muslim Mohammed, whether they jail Mohammed, the genie is out of the bottle. The genie is out of the bottle. And that is why when the Mohammed thing started, I said to you all black people, you all stop jumping on that bandwagon. That is not your all story. Leave those people that fight it out. Because they will be doing all of us a good turn. And the minute Mohammed step foot in the Indian community, the dynamics change. The dynamics have changed. Sisters and brothers, we are in serious times. Very, very serious times. Very serious times. I maintain my stance that any African wants to join any party, that's his or her business. But any African comes into the African community to buy the votes of his fellow African and to take it to the oppressor. And it's not, I am saying that it's an oppressor or African people. Indian people are calling the PPP the oppressors. When our Indian comrades are running from the oppressor, when they're exposing the oppressor, when they're pushing back against the oppressor, what are black people doing, allowing themselves to be bought by that oppressor? It's undignified. And every ounce of my political energy will be used to block it. When Indian people are running from the oppressor, are exposing the oppressor, are crying shame on the oppressor, what are black people doing allowing slave catchers to come into your community and to catch you and turn you over to that oppressor? Can't walk, will not walk. Have I put it clear? Is it clear? Clear? When Indian people are running from the oppressor who look like them, when they're exposing, they're shaming the oppressor, you have no business, Mr. African, Mr. Amerindian, you have no business allowing the catchers to come and catch you and turn you over to that oppressor. Take off those red jerseys. Take them off. They're the symbol of the oppressor. When Indian people are taking off the red jersey, why are you allowing yourself to be captured and put on a red jersey? Shame, shame, shame. I owe no apology for my sentiments here tonight. None. Sometimes you have to wait and see it through. You know, sometimes we black people, sometimes we too quick, you know. And I understand it, you know. So we don't say back, as the young people say, give me the popcorn and let me see what's going to play out here. These are serious times. Very serious times. And we have to meet the times. We have to meet the times. If there was ever a time for the black family, political family, the opposition political family of all races and classes to come together, now is the time. Now is the time. Because we are faced with a juggernaut. We are faced with an authoritarian government that knows no bounds and has no shame. God will not castigate us for turning our faces sternly against that oppressor. You cannot trade your bread for injustice. Professor Clive Thomas coined the term bread and justice. You cannot trade your justice for injustice. You cannot trade your justice for a piece of bread. Man gotta eat. Some of them black men I hear saying, man gotta eat a food. You cannot trade your justice for a little piece of food. What kind of fool is you? Says Dick Gregory. You cannot trade your justice. You cannot trade your dignity for a piece of dirty bread. And that is what Africans and poor Indians and Amerindians are being asked to do by this callous government. Rise up, Amerindian leaders, and defend your family. African leaders, unmuzzle yourselves. Let not your mouth be muzzled by the food you eat. Speak out for your political family. And more Mohammeds must come to the fore and walk among our Indian brothers and sisters and release them from the shackles of authoritarianism. Now is the time, says Dr. Martin Luther King. Now is the time when we must shake the foundations of this wicked authoritarian government. The men and women who make up that government may not be wicked, but the product that they fashion with their own hands and minds, that product is the epitome of wickedness. Now is the time. Now is the time for our black leaders to come out from behind the shades and speak to your people in their African language, in their African tongue. That's what Muhammad is doing. He's speaking to his Indian compatriots in their tongue. Muhammad is not going to Indians and telling them about extrajudicial killing. That's not their issue. Muhammad is not going to Indians and telling them about public servants' wages. That's not their issue. When we Africans go to our people, we have to tell them about extrajudicial killings. We have to tell them about suppress and repress public service wages. We have to tell them about reparations owed to them by the Guyana state. That's what I'm talking about. We have to speak to our people about their issues in their own language, and then at some point we bring those issues all together in one place and make a national statement. Amerindian children are murdered in their prison dorms. And it's good to see an African lawyer who has taken their cases. That's what I'm talking about. We are what we are. And that's the way it's going to be. But we can't be stupid all the time. We can't play stupid all the time. We cannot trade our dignity, our sense of justice for a little piece of stale bread. We cannot. By the rivers of Babylon, where we sat down, and there we wept when we remembered Zion. For the wicked carry us away captivity and required from us a song. How can we sing a freedom song in a strange land? We have to unstrange Guyana and make it a familiar piece of earth where all its people, regardless of their skin color or their social status, can live as full human beings, wallowing with happiness in our diversity. Not striving to be one Guyana, but striving to be a Guyana that respects all of its diverse peoples. The Lion of Judah shall break every chain and give us the victory again and again. Brother Tukumo Gunse is going to be here tomorrow night, and some others, and we're going to be continuing this conversation.